All right. All right. All right. Let's watch the Digital Foundry video of, what is it? Crimson Desert, the Black Space Engine tech preview. We do like our tech. Let's see what tech the Black Space Engine is. Oh my god, that's kind of loud. It has beautiful scenes and rendering. Good thing. Not a lot of games have that. What are they running this on? I know I'm sorry, I'm pausing it right away. What are they running this on? 7900 XTX. This is running on 60 FPS 4K ultra settings. Okay. This is the best the game is going to look.
Crimson Desert, one of the most promising games on the horizon, a game we've had our eyes on for quite some time. It's pushing some very impressive tech.
True.
And recently,
Oops,
we had a chance to look at some cool stuff. Specifically,
Ooh.
Alex had a chance to look at some cool stuff, and he shared some of it with me here today. And we wanted to do a little preview on this game because, my goodness, this is some beautiful stuff. So, Alex.
Yeah, John, this is a very fantastic looking game here, and I'm excited to talk to you about it.
Looking to get your hands on a free Resident Evil Requiem PC game code? Well, MSI has
Yes.
the promotion for you. Purchase a select MSI gaming monitor or desktop PC.
I don't have any money.
Write a
Yeah,
review
sorry.
on an eligible retail platform. Register your product with MSI, submit your details, and the game code is yours up until the end of March or while stocks last. Check out the video description below for eligible hardware, terms and conditions, and to learn more.
I mean, you have to spend money to get something for free. Then it's not for free. But hey, Resident Evil 9 is very good apparently. I'm too much of a pussy to play a game like that, but
So, first of
I will
all,
watch people
like,
play it.
we don't normally do previews in this way, but I think this was a special circumstance, right?
Yeah, basically, I was invited to a preview event to do our own coverage and capture for this game that would have been held in Amsterdam, right about the time we're recording this right now. But as I talked about in DF Direct most recently, I do have a health issue with my back, so I'm trying not to move and do arduous adventures like that at the
Don't
moment.
fuck up your back.
And they, the Pearl Abyss, the publisher and developer of this game, were kind enough to provide us with footage that we could have made at that preview event. And they did it in a very special way. I basically asked them, hey, you know, when we go to a preview event, we don't just randomly do gameplay of games. We're big nerds, and we like to do like slow moving camera shots with the controller, like perfectly locked 60 FPS, basically looking at all the gameplay, not really, but more so the graphical techniques. And they answered the call, and they did a lot of really amazing footage for us to make this preview video.
Yeah, you can see that here.
DF would do. So thank you to the game. And they did it in a cool way where they gave us the exact specs and the system settings that the game is running at. The game was running at for this.
You can see that they're using temporal anti-aliasing. I know that bugs a lot of people, and I really do feel for it because I'm not a big fan of temporal anti-aliasing either. The sad reality is that it's very, very cheap and it's very good, except in scenes with motion. But you know, from what they show with the gameplay, it looks like they have other options too. So the temporal anti-aliasing might be the highest available, while you can always fall back to maybe like a FXAA or something. At least it's what it seemed to me is that they're using that. You could see that on like the woman moving.
Thank you to the game, and they did it in a cool way where
you can see the temporal smearing here, where she's walking. So we at least know that they have temporal anti-aliasing, but it didn't seem like the previous gameplay showcases that they showed were using that. So at least we know we have options.
They gave us the exact specs and the system settings that the game is running at. The game was running at, for this preview video footage you're seeing on screen right now, it was running on a AMD Ryzen 9 7900X 3D 12-core processor, a Radeon RX 7900 XTX, so the last gen top-end GPU from AMD, 32 gigabytes of RAM.
Beefy system.
And we did it with VSync on and FSR native. So this is 4K.
Okay. So it is upscaling, but it's native. Interesting. Interesting.
Footage running at native 4K, and the game has presets going from minimum all the way up to cinematic with like low, medium, high, ultra in between them. And this was running on ultra, and so it's not the highest settings you can run at, but it's still, you know, 4K native on technically what is a last gen GPU.
Close enough.
And it looks like this, and it runs like this. You know, mainly at 60. Some scenes are a little bit lower, but this is obviously work in progress build at ultra high settings at native 4K, but it's running pretty darn well. Definitely running quite differently than a lot of Unreal Engine games would run at native 4K, I'd say.
For sure. And man, while you're laying this out, I'm just looking at the footage here and just the visual quality, man. Like sometimes when you see just the right visuals, you almost like get a similar feeling to exploring a place in real life.
Yes.
Like you feel like an emotion just seeing the scene.
I mean, yeah, the video does have compression, and then there's compression on the stream too. So I definitely recommend that you watch it yourself. I am running this in the 4K, but of course, Twitch only allows me to stream up to 7, and then I record separately on 25, and then of course I upload that. So there's like multiple layers of compression that are getting hit here depending on which end of the video you're on. But no, the engine looks great. I think that people are going to take this the wrong way. I don't think it reaches quite the same level of fidelity as Unreal, as Lumen. I'm not saying Lumen performs better, but I'm just going to state right off the bat, stylization is not necessarily the only thing to look at when we're looking at scene fidelity. However, good stylization, in my opinion, can override pure fidelity stuff. Lumen is really good, but it runs like shit because it's really expensive, and it's just the way that it looks like. You think it's 10 years old, looks like Witcher 3 looks better? I don't think so. But I will digress to my original point. Good stylization overrides pure fidelity any day of the week for me. And I think that Crimson Desert stylization is very good. They're very careful with where to sacrifice quality in order to deliver better optimization. And at the end of the day, I think that matters a lot more to gamers. But I just want to emphasize that from like a graphical perspective, this is not the quote best looking engine, but I will say that I think it is the best looking while also being the most optimized for what it is. Yeah, but it's like Wind on Trees looks a little bit wonky. Who cares? You know, you can see that you have some pretty aggressive LOD stuff here in the background. Who cares? You know, we are trying, you know, Unreal and other engines are trying to solve this problem. That's what Nanite would do. You know, you wouldn't have the aggressive LODs, which can reduce the mesh count and overall scene complexity. But at the end of the day, does this look bad? No. Is this running at native 4K? Ultra settings? Yes. And I think that for most gamers, and I would say like a majority of them, that's what matters the most.
Like perfectly locked 60 FPS, basically looking at all the gameplay.
It looks beautiful.
Not really, but more so the graphical techniques. And they answered the call, and they did a lot of really amazing footage for us to make this preview video in a style that DF would do. So thank you to the game, and they did it in a cool way where they gave us
you know, it's just the video is pushing it like it's the GTA 6 graphics. I don't think they're pushing it like that. Sorry, I just pressed a button on accident. hold on. I don't think that they're saying that. I know I catch flack whenever I say this. And it's tough to look at a still image and to judge it for what it is, because games are not still images, they are in motion. But we can see that they are being quite aggressive with sprites and billboards. I think that overall their fire visual effect quality is a little bit bad. Same with smoke in some instances. But that's not to say that the game is bad. I don't know how else to say this. The game looks beautiful, but it's mostly because of stylization and very carefully putting in more effort and work into certain aspects of the scene than others. It's just like it's a different focus of engine technology than I think what Epic is doing or even what Crytek is doing.
Playing pretty darn well. Definitely running quite differently than a lot of Unreal
It looks
Engine
good.
games would run at native 4K, I'd say.
For sure. And man, while you're laying this out, I'm just looking at the footage here and just the visual quality, man. Like sometimes when you see just the right visuals, you almost like get a similar feeling to exploring a place in real life.
Yes.
Like you feel like an emotion just seeing
Yeah,
it.
I mean the scale and level design is just really, really beautiful. It feels like something out of, Lord of the Rings or something like that, and it's really pretty. It's really pretty.
The scenery, and there's something about the color use and the way everything moves and just behaves that makes this feel
I mean,
just
let's put it this
sublime.
way, right? Because I think that this scene is kind of a good one to show off here. When you're developing engine technology, it's not, an engine is just a bundle of code and features, which are at the end of the day just code too, right? So I don't really like the whole term that there's good engines and bad engines. An engine is what you make of it. And there are some engines where you have closed source, some engines with open source, or let's say source available, so you can rewrite things in the way that you need to. Unless they discovered new rendering techniques, or they have very specifically catered the engine to only have what they need at that time, which they should, and it looks like they did, then there's no real difference between the way that they are going to be, let's say, scattering light around the scene, or handling how light is treated in volumetric smoke or fog or something. A lot of these best techniques are kind of open source, or there's white pages or white papers on these. So I don't think that this game, from certain perspectives, is doing anything that no other engine has done before. And I think that there are some cases, especially in some of the visual effect quality, like Fire, it looks worse than other engines. But this is a trade-off. This is, in order to save a lot of GPU render time, we're going to limit the number of, let's say, lights, dynamic lights that are affecting an area, or, cull the space at which we're doing screen space reflections or ray tracing. We are going to be aggressive with LODs. All of these are ways to save GPU time, and at the end of the day, it's just where are you making those sacrifices in order to push something else ahead of that. Yeah, and like Frostbite, you bring up a good point, Processor Chaos, with Frostbite. Although with Frostbite and Battlefield 6 maps, they are, you have that static day-night cycle, so there's a lot that you can save there. Dynamic day-night cycle games are going to inherently just cost more because you have to update shadows, in real time, or you have to like tick the shadow updates, but then it gets like choppy with that. There's always trade-offs. So don't think that an engine is inherently something bad. It is what's made of it. And there are very, very specific decisions that are made either by the developers of an engine or the users of an engine that are going to impact the ability for your GPU to render that frame faster or slower. It is what it is. So, we can go into infinite levels of nuance with this and talk about, one specific thing or how things are getting cold and render distances, but I can only say that this engine, the Black Space engine here, is very impressive for the performance that it's giving you. But that doesn't mean that it is a one-size-fits-all engine, because of course we know, as with current one-size-fits-all engines like with Unreal, there are trade-offs that you get with that. Yes, you can make a lot of pretty cool games with it very quickly, but it does come with a lot of bloat and things that most people don't know how to turn off that are costing a lot in the background.
Feel just sublime, and I'm super interested to check it out because this is actually a very big single player open world game, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's kind of an RPG, open world, systemic design, I would say, based upon everything I've seen so far and what I played a little bit at the Consumer Electronics Show. Time of day, all the time, sun going up and down, varying cloud weather.
Interesting. See I'm checking some of the details, right? You can see like the changes in the chimneys over time, which is kind of interesting.
A little bit at the Consumer Electronics Show. Time of day, all the time.
But you can see they're being pretty aggressive here with like rendering characters. Characters are very expensive to render.
Sun going up and down.
You can see it's very weird though. You can see some like shadows.
Day, all the time, sun going up and down.
Maybe that's just like some artifacting here. It's kind of hard to spot.
Day, all the time, sun going up and down, varying cloud weather and varying weather, varying locations and biome types, a lot of outdoor locations too, because it's kind of got this medieval magic aesthetic, but also there's cities and towns with a lot of indoor areas. It does remind me a bit of Dragon's Dogma.
Hopefully not in some ways. Hopefully not in some ways. Yeah, they're being very smart with like shadow resolutions. Very aggressive LODs though. You can see it. You can see a lot of LOD pop in. Just kind of one of those. It's one of those trade-offs we talked about, right?
It does remind me of.
And you can see there's actually a really good example down here. So you can see a bit more accurate shadows, or I think it's not the shadows, but the LODs.
Indoor areas. It does.
Yeah, LODs are getting changed. Yeah, it's starting to call out some of the details here. I wonder when they start to de-render people. I mean, in most cases, you're not going to be like flying in the air like this, so it's not going to be super noticeable on the ground. But they do have flying in the game, which is always a challenge because of how fast you need to stream in assets. And this is one of the trade-offs you can see with like Unreal Engine with Nanite, which is you don't have that LOD pop in, but it is trying to very quickly stream high-res assets and manage the clustering. So in games with very fast movement, with Nanite enabled, people with slower hard drives or slower SSDs running on SATA interface are going to experience probably some of that hitching that can occur. And people often think of this as shader compilation hitching, which can occur, but most likely in the cases where you have precompiled shaders, which is, a necessity for modern engines and shaders that we have in games. If you are playing like an Unreal game and having those hitches, try installing it on a faster drive, because that might fix a lot of your problems.
It does remind me a bit of Dragon's Dogma.
Oh yeah, wait, hold on. I could see some of the shadows getting cold too. Or no, this is not the shadows, but rather some of the extra details on the buildings.
Bit of Dragon's Dogma 2.
Nice fade
in
on
terms
it, though.
of just the world design, but I think this is maybe even a little.
Oh, and you can see really low quality buildings getting added here. Yeah, it's very aggressive. I kind of worry about how moving fast on closer distances is going to look, but maybe they have some engine modifications you could make to increase the distance at which you're rendering, because you can absolutely see some of these very, very low quality imposters getting thrown up. Try to go back. Come on. Saw them change. Watch like this building right here. Really, really noticeable one.
Do in terms of just the world design, but I think this is maybe
It's not very far away. I mean, if I'm riding on like a dragon or something, that's not very far away. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if there's a way to increase that, because it's pretty aggressive pop in.
even a little bit larger in scope. And like I said, the game does focus a lot on systemic aspects, which does give me Breath of the Wild feels, and is powered by an engine that is unique to Pearl Abyss, called the Black Space Engine, which is a pretty brutal name.
I love that name, actually, and I love, of course, seeing an in-house engine like this. Honestly, looking at this footage and thinking about how things usually go for us, I would not be surprised to see our Game of the Year thing come out to Crimson Desert versus Resident Evil Requiem, and then you end up arguing that this should win, and
because
then
I like
wins.
systemic design.
I mean, wow, look at just how fucking crazy this rain is. You can't see anything here.
And then you end up arguing that this should win, and
because
then
I like
wins.
systemic design.
Like, let's find out. Like, maybe that's what will happen, but I feel like based on our
really
previous
dense rain,
histories, like there's a good chance that something like that might happen.
Yeah, this is kind
Yeah,
of
it
a
does-
game
looks
that's
nice.
right up DF's alley, because
I
it
love
does
the
a lot of
dense
special
rain.
stuff. And I do think the developers, this game will be releasing simultaneously on console, and we'll be having coverage
That's
of a
scary.
PC review. We're going to have an interview.
Who in chat has ever released a game simultaneously on PC and consoles? God, I don't think I ever want to be in that situation again.
Tech developers behind the game that will go up
It
on
really
the website,
sucks. There's so much you have to get
hopefully
right.
by the PC review date. And we're going to be covering this game because it is probably one of the biggest PC releases this year, that at least the ones that have firm release dates at the moment. Obviously these things can change, who knows what this industry does, but like I said, it's a very PC-like game due to that kind of structure, as well as the technological design behind the game. And there's a lot of really cool things.
It is kind of a
that it's doing.
PC-like game. That's a
as
good
I
way to
mentioned
put it.
earlier, open world, systemic.
I think that there's really, I think that their volumetric clouds look great. I wish their water quality was a little bit better. But if I have to sacrifice one thing, I don't care too much about like water surface quality. Really, the engine in the game looks great. I can nitpick all day, but I can do that about any engine and about any game. And it's mostly because I'd love to see engines and technology and GPUs get to the point that we can just be like, okay, I have nothing more to nitpick. We have infinite render distance. The clouds look as realistic as you could expect. The water looks as realistic as you could expect. Not that realism is everything about a game, but we used to look at games like, back on the PS3 and think, how could games get any more lifelike than this? Or, some Final Fantasy tech demo that's showing like some new facial motion capture thing, and how can it look any better than this? And we always seem to find a way. So maybe one day in our lifetime would be great if GPUs didn't cost the price of a kidney. They put money into motion capture faces? I don't know. Probably. Or maybe they keyframed, but there's a lot of NPCs. Maybe a bit of a mix of both.
And a big part of that is the changing time of day. And we have confirmation from Pearl Abyss here, actually, that the game does use ray traced diffuse GI, and you can see that pretty much in every single scene in the game, whether that be outdoor or indoors. And it does appear to be a per pixel effect, so it doesn't seem to be based upon like only probes like we've seen in other games, which is a way to save on performance. This game does target per pixel, although I would say for this footage, since it isn't the ultimate high settings the game has, perhaps it can be even higher quality than we're seeing here.
Potentially.
But one thing you'll notice is that, like, if you're in an indoor area, like this almost church-looking area, when the sunlight streams into there, or even just the sky lighting, it bounces around the room, giving nooks and crannies a darkness to them. And
yeah, I mean, it definitely has some of the same issues that Lumen has, as you can see. You can really see it in like areas with partial lighting.
it bounces around.
You'll see like these boiling artifacts on the edges, especially as we get back into this next nook. Take a look at it and you can watch like the boiling artifacts. This is just unfortunately something that saves on the cost of ray tracing, and you can see it in pretty much every engine with ray tracing. It's just the current trade-off that we have.
On the room, giving nooks
See
and
that here
crannies
though.
darkness to them, and any of the areas where the sunlight is adjacent to them,
It takes time for the scene to update.
And they provided some very cool time of day lapse footage here.
Oh wow, look at this.
Yeah, of these indoor areas.
The good news is when you have these static camera shots like this, or you're not in high motion, the scene quality looks incredible, absolutely incredible. And open areas where you have really bright directional light, like out directly in the sunlight, you shouldn't notice too many problems. But these either like darker or mixed interiors are going to get a lot of those problems, and there isn't really an engine that solved that with high quality ray traced global illumination. Not yet.
You can see basically how dramatic the outside weather conditions affect the lighting of an indoor area, which makes sense for like these medieval structures. And then as nighttime rolls around, you can see that GI contribution, that diffuse contribution, also applies to local things like torches, sconces, and whatnot, which isn't a given because some games have only had like GI, coming from the sun or the moon. But here it does apply apparently to all lights, and it's pretty great looking. It reminds me a lot visually of the stuff that we saw in the massive Snowdrop engine games, the most recent ones like Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora.
Oh, interesting. Look, you can kind of see this. So look at the shadow from the tower here. It looks like shadows that are further in the distance do update on a slower tick.
We saw in the
You can see
massive
it snapping
Snowdrop
back
engine
here.
games, the most recent ones like Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora, and Star Wars Outlaws. It really does give me that look.
Smart.
Yeah.
Looks really great. And one of my favorite parts of it, though, is that, and now this is also an artistic thing as well as a tech thing, but when you get to nighttime, the game actually is super dark.
I like that too.
It's a pet peeve
Yeah,
of mine in games.
That makes sense with the Dragon's Dogma reference earlier then, right? 'Cause,
Yeah.
yeah, that was one thing that always did well.
Mhm.
Cool. All right, so we have ray traced diffuse GI. What other ray tracing do we have?
Well, it appears the game does use ray traced reflections. I saw that at the
Okay.
CES preview that I had there at the AMD booth, as well as here in the footage that they've kindly provided. They have a number of shots. One, any of the water you see in the game, the standing water, pretty obvious RT reflection contribution there. It seems to be a mix of screen space, depending upon the element on screen, and the distance with an RT reflection pass. And then there's an indoor shot here of like all these people crowded around what looks like tables eating. And there, the time of day is changing. But if you look at the ground, there's some like polished marble, it appears to be. And you can get a really good sense both of the RTGI diffuse contribution to the scene, as well as the really nice looking RT reflections here. So it's not very typical to have games that have like medieval aesthetics to have RT reflections, like Dragon's Dogma 2 didn't include them. But here, there's enough shiny stuff lying around that they thought it was a good enough thing to add in. And that does kind of actually rival stuff like you see with Lumen, where Lumen does both diffuse lighting and reflections.
Yeah, it definitely, I'd definitely say rivals. I wonder, if they've kept the noise down quite a bit, but I wonder if some of that is due to just the surface. The water on the surface is very noisy itself from the wind, the natural movement you would expect in water, and it might be hiding some of that in a very smart way.
Stuff like you see with Lumen, where Lumen does both diffuse lighting and reflections, and their system does the same thing here too. But obviously we're seeing the game run at native 4K on an RX 7900 XTX, last gen AMD GPU, targeting 60 FPS. And that's something that you really wouldn't get out of a UE5 title. So I'm impressed at the fact that ray tracing is running this well on an older AMD GPU.
That's awesome. What else is awesome though, going through your footage before, I think the thing that really stood out to me the most actually is the way they handle water. Because usually when you have like streams of water, you know, water lapping up on shore, it was just a lot of like 2D effects, texture effects, particles, things like that to give you the impression of water like moving and like.
Interesting stuff. The resolution of the mesh moving here, of the deforming, is actually kind of low, which is fine. That's not a criticism, because if you make it too high resolution, it starts costing a million, whatever, insert GPU currency here. But I really like what they did with the foam, which almost seems to be a separate particle system. You can see it kind of sometimes pulls away from the shader. But it looks pretty nice when it's combined together.
Changing across the shore, but here they seem to have come up with some sort of like 3D displacement system for the waves, where like it's like a physical body that washes up and recedes on shore, right?
Yeah, it appears to. One thing, a lot of games, they do have like a 3D.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. They have a nice, wetness map on there. I wonder how much of that, though, is baked.
Deformation.
Because I don't really see the wetness changing. It would be very smart to bake a lot of this because it is, shoreline. It's not like the shore is magically going to disappear. So it's very, very smart trade-offs to fidelity or small details in order to make the game hit that 4K target. Very smart trade-offs. Because of course they could have like the wetness recede until the water comes up again. They could increase the visual quality, but I think that they've baked an awful lot of this, which is saving them a lot of performance overhead.
Right?
Yeah, real-time calculation.
One thing, a lot of games, they do have like a 3D deformation in some other games, but it's based upon just height only, right?
Right.
And here it appears that the water also has at least the concept of it in what it's calculating also has a sense that it needs to fill space.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. Yeah. Look at that. On the it's almost doing like a what's it called? Like a tide pool kind of effect.
The concept of it in what it's calculating also has a sense that it needs to fill space. So that means the down and below and back and behind it. So it's not just an up-down motion, but it can go backwards upon itself, nice. Which is a pretty rare thing. That's usually been faked in games with just exactly. Some sort of baked effect or some baked geometry.
Yeah, I mean, now that they mention that, they're right. I mean, it doesn't really appear fully baked.
Also has a sense that it needs to fill space.
Cares about
so
water.
That means the down.
You would say that. You would say nobody cares about water, and then some game comes out that has a bit of a rough launch. And what's the first stupid post somebody makes on Reddit? Water physics compared to Red Dead Redemption 2 and Cyberpunk. Every fucking time. Oh my god. I just want to make low and high tide transition, then baking is problematic. Yeah, I mean, there's some... There's a mix here. Thanks for the resubs, Seaswell. Not leave me alone about the fucking
just subscribed. OMG, it will not leave me alone about this fucking anniversary.
Thanks, man. I think they baked some of it. I think they baked a wet map. Because you don't see like this drying or anything at all.
Also has a sense that it needs to fill space. So that means the down and below and back and behind it. So it's not just an up-down motion, but it can go backwards upon itself.
It looks
which
very
is
nice.
A pretty rare thing. That's usually been faked in games with just
exactly.
some sort of baked effect or some baked geometry that appears when something gets to the shore. And here you can actually see it on, there's a number of shots here of the shore, but you can see it just like hitting against rocks and receding back down.
Yeah,
on
it did-
itself,
no,
which
they're
is
right. It
really
absolutely
awesome
does
looking.
that.
And they use it for multiple, not just like the ocean style water or the seas in the game, but also it appears to be covering streams and rivers. And there it allows for pretty natural looking falling water, which once again, usually for most games, that would be something you'd have to like, I wouldn't say fake it, but it would be more like an artist driven thing instead of just systemically being as a part of how the water.
Yeah, but you know what? Here's what I think it is. I think it is still baked, but it's almost like they baked it per like cell of how they're handling the game world. There's no way that they're running this, that you know they're checking this real time. It would just be too expensive to do that real time. So it is baked simulations, but it looks like they're baking and then coming back to a start point, right? So that it blends seamlessly.
Functions without much interaction. That interaction also includes stuff from like your character or physicalized objects, and that's another thing that I kind of liked about this game. It's not fully present in the footage I've been provided here, but I saw it at the CES event, is that there's a lot of destruction in the game, and you'll see the character here going into the water and smashing like, what do you call them? Tree stumps?
Or
Exactly.
And the game's trees and vegetation is very destructible, which
interesting. Maybe I'm
that
wrong.
interaction
I don't know.
also includes
I'd love
stuff
to see a
from,
tech
like,
breakdown of their
character or
water.
physicalized objects, and that's another thing that I kind of liked about this game. You're going into the water and smashing
Also, this was cool.
like what do you call them? Trees.
It just breaks into the wood pieces. I want to see that in a bit more slow mo.
Character here going into the water and smashing.
You can see like they have some really, really cheap visual effects. Again, cheap is not a bad thing. You want to hit 4K, you're gonna have to be cheap in some areas. It's just I feel like they're really smart about where they decided to sacrifice
like
quality. Very, very smart.
oh,
I love the spark effect. The spark effect is interesting. Weird place to put that. I mean, I can see some pieces fly off. I don't know if those are just like for visual clutter, to help sell the break effect.
them.
But yeah, it's sending out a shockwave. It's really cool. They have some really cool water.
Tree stumps.
Exactly.
It's not the most high quality from like a fidelity perspective. Like nobody is gonna make, some photorealistic pond screenshot with the water in Crimson Desert. But they did a really good job with their simulation. Put it that way. And again, it's a trade-off, right? They wanted the simulation because the simulation is actively kind of selling the effects of the gameplay. As opposed to high fidelity, which you might have, I don't know, in like a walking sim type game. You can see here too, like some of the aggressive lower LODs and some of the texture resolution changes. Trade-offs. Just trade-offs.
The game's trees and vegetation is very destructible.
I'm not a
which
hater.
Is pretty cool, and there's probably more destructible stuff that I haven't even seen yet. But when I play this game and this like PC ethos that it kind of exudes to me, is I always go back to the middle 2000s, and when I see games actually focusing on destruction again instead of like how good does the cinematic look, I get super excited because that's like the stuff that got me into gaming technology, like the interactivity of worlds. So this game seems to have it in spades, and that's very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, in real life, I also like to pick up giant tree trunks and smash them into the water into pieces. And now we can do it in game.
I will say, I don't think the water reflection looks that great. I'm just gonna sound like people will get upset about me for complaining. I'm not complaining. I just need to once again say that it's trade-offs. If you're gonna have something look great, we're going to have it, doing something crazy. You have a GPU budget, right? A game that is running at 4K 60 FPS means that every, 18 milliseconds? Regardless, you have that long, you have 18, 17 milliseconds, whatever it is, to render the frame, to render one frame of the game. And that cost has to go somewhere. It has to go into Well, what meshes are we showing? What textures are we trying to render? What lighting are we trying to update? Where are our shadows? How are the reflections in the water set up for the scene, right? This one frame has to render faster than you are blinking your eyes. Much faster than you're blinking your eyes. That's not easy to do. That's not easy to do, and you need to sacrifice the quality somewhere in order to have that render. Simple fact. But I don't think the water looks bad here. It's just not going to be game-breaking, world-changing, genre-defining water. And it doesn't need to be. The game needs to be fun. One way to simulate water is quite cheap and was using City Skylines. I think this demo uses the same. Oh, I can't play that right now. But yeah, I mean, this is not looking bad.
So another thing though in this footage is that
Their
there's a lot of
buoyancy physics is
long-range
nice, too.
shots I noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, did you get any information about the way they're handling like distant lots and such? Because it's something that varies a lot per game and it's difficult to do right. Obviously, that was a big focus of Nanite from Epic, but what about this one? What are they doing here?
Well, I remember there were at CES they specifically told us I believe they were using Speed Tree. Here it looks
Yeah, I think we. Yeah, I could imagine that they're using Speed Tree. I mean, they're being very efficient. It's really hard to have a dense looking scene like this. I know that some older game engines, what they used to do, in order to save performance, is just render. For instance, like the lights, like you can't be simulating dynamic lighting at range here. So instead what they do is they render basically what you could say are like UI elements, just like little circles with translucency, and putting those on the top layer in places where you would have that. So basically just like screen space, lights that, you know, will fade out over time or over distance is a better way to put it. They still have pretty high quality textures and meshes in the background. It's definitely not it's not like virtualized geometry like Nanite. But they're being very smart with it. It's a really good showcase of what happens when you have these crazy technological targets and lots of people, because I don't even know how many people are working on Crimson Desert. But it can't be small. Who's the hold on. Crimson Desert. Pearl Abyss size. Yeah, that would make sense. Here's the reality is like that's how many people were touching Red Dead Redemption 2. So we can't apply this quality expectation to the entire industry because it's just not going to be possible. It's Red Dead Redemption level. Yeah, it's Red Dead level of people. So I'm astounded at the level of fidelity and the performance that we get here. This is what happens when you have time, money, and people to do it. This is what happens.
looks like they are really focusing on the fact that when there are trees in the mid to short distance that they don't disappear at a
it's money
or turn into some imposter, which looks very different in terms of
Look at this tree down here. I'm not shitting on the tree down here, but look at this tree. It's like glitching out on some frames. I wonder if it's like right at that weird distance where it should be turning into like an imposter or a different LOD. Really funny.
in terms of how it is shaded or how it is lit and shadowed. So one thing you'll see is that at a distance, trees still look 3D and still appear. And the grass that is kind of going along the rolling countryside.
I don't agree. I don't agree that the trees appear 3D at distance. Not all of them, at least. No, it looks great, but you can tell these are billboards. I'm nearly 100% sure I'm nearly 100% sure that these are billboards. It's really hard to see. These look like billboards. These trees look like billboards. What I'm more impressed by is not that they're billboards, but rather that they're rendering the shadows for them at this distance. To me, that's the impressive part. Because shadows are a lot more expensive than like rendering some billboards or something, right? Or even like a super low quality LOD. It looks nice. It really looks nice. Yeah, the shadows to me are way more impressive because shadows are fucking expensive to render. It's kind of hard to see what's 2D and what isn't. Like this absolutely looks like these look like billboards. I don't know, man. I mean, fucking hell. Even though they're probably very low quality shadows, like it sells the scene. Yeah, trees up here look like they're lacking shadows, although it's kind of hard to see. As I see some dark spots. It's still impressive to be rendering shadows at that distance. You bought a 5070 Ti, came with Resident Evil instead of this? Hey, they're both good games. Or at least I hope that Crimson Desert is a good game, but Resident Evil is a great game. This looks like a 3D. This looks like a very low LOD. I don't know. It's really hard to tell without movement. I think some of this is just really intelligent, smart use of billboards and sprites.
Side also still seems to appear really far in the distance. Yes, this is ultra settings, but still not a typical thing to see in games, especially with the lighting and shadowing.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell with like the wind that they're just rotating some sprites. Yeah, I think you make a really good point, Elliot. They are selling the 3D effect, and that's really all that matters because games are just full of smoke and mirrors. They've been that way for decades. They are selling the 3D effect, and even though these are like some of the stuff is very clearly low resolution LODs, and some of the stuff back here might be sprites, like you said, they are selling the effect.
Along the rolling countryside also still seems to appear really far in the distance. Yes, this is ultra settings, but
the shadows
still
are
not a typical thing to see in
impress me
games,
the most,
especially with the lighting and shadowing working well with it. I'm talking about you, Halo Infinite. Like it does really.
Halo Infinite didn't like that.
No, Halo Infinite didn't like that. It does a really good long range LOD here, and the one thing that I've recently that I picked up here is also the trees and grass animate pretty far into the distance, and recently in
Okay, yeah, the zoom in here really shows. Very interesting.
UE5 titles, the trees and grass animate pretty far into the distance, and recently in UE5 titles we've seen as a kind of optimization, perhaps for virtual shadow maps reasons, that a lot of UE5 games have been like culling the animation.
Or for virtual shadow map reasons. I mean, yes, you can have fallback meshes for shadows, and it's possible that those games didn't have fallback meshes for shadows for foliage shadows, which of course then you're using the nanite mesh for shadowing, which is, yeah, it's not great. You're going to get some really, really way too high resolution shadows at a distance. But it's not to say that Unreal doesn't have the ability to render simple wind in the distance at all. It absolutely can. It just depends on how far you want that being done. and what type of method for the wind that you're using. But yeah, this is 100% billboards. I will say, if they're using billboards for the grass too and the shrubs, it looks pretty damn good. Because they're still rendering shadows on this too. Very interesting.
Shadow maps reasons that a lot of UE5 games have been like culling the animation for vegetation pretty close to the screen. We saw that in Borderlands.
Okay, but let's not use Borderlands 4 as the pinnacle of Unreal optimization. In fact, I think it's the opposite. This might be the worst optimized Unreal Engine 4 game, or Unreal Engine 5 game, sorry, that has ever been released. It was horrible. And I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure that I don't know exactly what was causing the performance problems in Unreal Engine or in Borderlands 4. But I would imagine that they were not using nanite foliage, of course, because it was a bit of an older version and probably heavily customized version of Unreal Engine 5. And nanite foliage should dramatically change the way that foliage is rendered. And you shouldn't have those problems. And nanite is pretty well optimized for what it is, but it just depends on your usages of it. I think grass has to be at this distance. I would think that it is. I would definitely not. Let's not use Borderlands 4 as any sort of benchmark, except for maybe, at minimum, your game should be running as good as Borderlands 4.
As well as Silent Hill F with one of the settings the game has when you go to performance mode. And so seeing a game that still has a lot of these interactions with the vegetation going far into the distance is impressive. And that includes, other stuff that goes without saying. This footage is just shown all over the place, like the skies, the volumetric clouds, the volumetric lighting, the fact that particles are lit and shaded based upon local, GI and lighting conditions.
Yeah. You could see the trade-off, though. The fire effects are kind of not great.
Like
that's the best thing.
The fire effects are very, very not great, but who cares? Because, I think that more importantly is that they light the scene rather than they look great. Because lighting has a much better impact on the game than just, like, super high-quality visual fire effects. I'll take real night over blue sky night all day. There's a lot of people that would disagree. There's a lot of people in the industry. I'll say this. There's a lot of people in the industry that would disagree on having Dark Knight. And I know their reasoning for it, but I do prefer the Dark Knight. It's so much more atmospheric. Other would probably be a good comparison to Red Dead. Yeah, maybe. How much do you think Epic paid them for this? What, to shit on Epic? I don't think they're shitting on Epic. I think that they are shitting on Borderlands 4, which absolutely deserves to be shit on. This game was so horribly optimized. It's unbelievable how poorly optimized this game was. Even though there's some really impressive parts to it. This is not UE5. No, this is their own engine, Black Space Engine.
That's the best thing, right?
Yeah, the rain particles at night.
Yes,
very cool. So
the rain looks really cool.
All great looking stuff here.
Yeah, the rain particles in particular is one of the most stunning things for me. Like doing rain already. Yeah, the rain particles in particular is one of the most stunning things.
There's some trade-offs here. You can see that it's not interacting with the puddles.
Like doing rain already is something that a lot of games still don't get right.
Interacting with
meshes,
meshes,
the rare ones that do. But doing rain at night like this, I can't think of many examples where. I mean,
it's interacting with the water. I guess
the closest thing it reminds me of actually is like The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah, that's a good example.
That's a smaller scale game and very, very cinematic. So doing that
PC was just weak. Yeah,
in
fucking
such a
Randy.
large scale game like this, that's pretty insane.
Yeah,
dude, Randy destroyed the game's PR and release. He should have just shut his fucking mouth.
This is the preview video.
Idiot.
I'm gonna try and do like a tech blowout review for this game when it comes out. We do have some information before release. AMD has already put out a statement saying that this game's gonna support a number of the FSR Redstone features, including ray regeneration.
Right.
I'm more interested to see how it looks with DLSS because FSR does not look great, in my opinion. You know, hey, it runs native. That's the important thing. So if you don't want to use that, you don't have to use it. I will probably try to run whatever I can with DLAA, even if I need to knock a couple settings down, because I think DLAA looks better than native. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I don't know yet, Jesus Christ, if I will play this on stream and record this for YouTube, but maybe. But I need to get some really, really important work stuff done before we do that.
FG,
Yeah, they do have
frame
big bucks.
generation, and
It's not
FSR
cheap.
4 or FSR AI as they call it these days. And then I can only imagine that they're going to cover all the other, vendor technologies.
They have over
but
1,000
we'll have to
people
see
working
until
on
those
this
games
game.
are announced. I think
That is hundreds
NVIDIA
of millions of
may
dollars of
post
budget.
something about it if they already haven't posted something about it.
Very few
on their
companies have
blog,
that money
like
to
they usually
spend.
do regarding driver coverage. Intel, who knows? So there's a lot of great tech going in here. We're going to also try and get a PS5 review out there in time for release. You know, this is releasing at the same time as Death Stranding 2, but we're going to definitely have all
Good
our
game
eyes
as well.
on this title.
Boom. Heck yeah. Man, this is good looking stuff. I had been looking at this over the years and sort of keeping an eye on it, but like now that it's almost here, like I'm like, okay, I'm actually really interested in checking this out, especially because it's coming from a different place than usual, a studio I wasn't really familiar with, and like doing something ambitious like this, there's always a chance that they come up with something just like shocking and new and really special.
I mean, I can say this, that even if the game itself is not shocking, new, or special, which I have no reason to believe that, but even if it isn't, devil's advocate, the engine that they've made here is very impressive. They likely won't license this engine. I could be wrong. I kind of hope I'm wrong. But man, I mean, yeah, they're up there. I mean, they're going to learn a lot from making this game on this engine. It's something that I wish Unity had done a long time ago, because I think that, for better or worse, you know, we can thank Unreal Engine 5 on Epic developing Fortnite. We can also thank Unreal Engine 5 on them preferring to cater to the movie and effects industry than making a version of the engine that is more optimized for gamers. I hope that they change that. Probably won't, but I can hope. I can huff my hopium. This engine looks fucking good, though. You like the scale of the city? A lot of games imply big city, like have like 5 buildings. Didn't they say that like every building would be enterable? I don't think they did. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, because will it feel like a big city? Not that I think every building should be enterable, but will there, let's put it this way, will there be enough buildings that I can enter with NPCs to where it will feel like a big city? Yeah, will I even bother to enter the buildings, I guess is the question. I know people, I'm going to put this on YouTube, people in chat will tell me, don't get upset with me, I'm not keeping up to date with everything Crimson Desert, so please just tell me what has been said if you guys are keeping up to date with them. You're hoping it won't be shocking, new, or special. At that point, I will take solid game above all those objectives. Yeah, I could agree with that. I don't think that a game has to be unique to be amazing. I really don't. Looks like Novigrad and The Witcher 3 in terms of scale. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. And this is just one of the cities. I think there's multiple cities in the game.
Everything here looks amazing, so I'm really, really excited to give it a shot. So here's hoping for the best. But anyway, thanks for sharing all the deets, Alex.
Anytime, John.
Hold on a sec.
Looks amazing, so I'm really, really excited to give it a shot. So here's hoping for the best. But anyway, thanks for sharing all the deets, Alex.
Oh, weird what they're doing with their clouds. It's like they have 2 layers of the volumetric clouds, where one is moving slower, one is moving faster.
Special. Everything here looks
It looks
amazing.
weird at 1,000 times playback speed, but it looks a lot more natural at normal
so
speed.
I'm really, really excited to give it a shot. So
Cool though.
here's hoping for the best. But anyway, thanks for sharing all the deets, Alex.
Anytime, John.
And thank you for watching Digital Foundry. And we'll see you next time.
You're welcome. Hey, This looks really good though. I think that this engine is very impressive, and unfortunately, making an engine like this, especially an in-house engine, is very expensive. Most studios, most developers do not have the resources or time or knowledge to build something of this quality out of the box. That's fucking difficult, but man, it's nice to see more engines like this spring up, because it's a really impressive looking engine. I think that they are rivaling some of the best engines out there at the moment, and I hope that they continue to improve that. And maybe if they make enough money, which I think that they will, considering how many people are already buying this game before it's even out, I hope that they can continue and make, Crimson Desert 2, or some new game within the same engine, and just continue to improve the visuals while still maintaining the performance. So most people who want to make a game kind of fail early. They try to make something unique. It's kind of hard to make something truly unique in this day and age. You should try to focus and try to make a good game first. I think what often you see is that people are mistaking unique for unique selling points, where your game can be a unique combination of pre-existing factors, and in most cases, most games are already like this, right? There's, art is all derivative anyway, so it's at a certain point you are just pulling inspiration from a lot of different things. I think just, try to make what you're trying to make, put a lot of passion into it, and there will be a market for pretty much everything. It's just a question of whether or not your market is big enough to sustain your budget and development timeline. Slow your roll. Crimson Desert will slowly turn into a game with multiplayer aspects soon after launch, with microtransactions creeping in. Okay, we'll see. We'll see if you're right. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. I don't know. Novel for unique. That's a good way to put it. I've not tried Resident Evil. I've been watching Resident Evil. I don't know yet if I will be buying Crimson Desert. I think I will. The question is whether or not I'll have enough time to play it on stream, and that is a big question because I have a lot of work to do, and I need to focus on that. So I might play this off stream. I'm not sure yet. I mean, if people want to watch me play it on stream, by all means, come onto Twitch and, get a sub for the channel. That'll indicate that, people want this and are willing to, help me out financially with that. Because otherwise I got to focus on making my own game, because that's where the money's going to come from. But we'll see. Maybe I'll spend a couple days playing it, and we can, talk about some of its technology. I love looking at new engines and the technology and the trade-offs that they have. And this game just seems to have some really intelligent trade-offs to warrant the performance that they have obtained. It's really great. So yeah, I don't know. Crimson Desert looks awesome. I'm looking forward to it. And if you guys want to see this video yourself, I highly recommend it, because on stream and on YouTube it's going to get a bit bastardized for the bitrate. So go check it out here. And if you're watching on YouTube, thank you, and put anything that I missed or anything that you think I got wrong in the comments. And note that I do not hate. I'm not being a hater. There's plenty of problems that exist here that exist in other engines, and there are things that exist in other engines that this engine has solved. So, it's really cool to see, and I hope that we can just keep working up the fidelity and performance ladder until we have a whole bunch of interesting engines that are all very capable at running on mid-end hardware like this game is going. Yeah, hope you enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments if you have anything that you disagree with or things that I missed. Shiitake, good question. Take care.